Hi there, everybody. This is John Drew here from Elevated Planet, and I am here today with Isa Vasanti. Is that pronounced correctly? Is that Visanti, Isa?
It's Vasanti.
Vasanti, right.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Delighted to meet you, and I'm really grateful to you for stepping up as part of our community who I know is a breathwork consultant because I would have been there with experiencing your work firsthand back in April, what was it? No, May, June of last year at the Greg Braden event at Sedona. And I've got to say that it was, it amazed me. I'd tried the Wim Hof thing before the breathwork again, which is exceptionally good. But that experience in the hall, when there were, the best part of 300 of us laid out there, all being facilitated in this breath work over a reasonable period of time, it was amazing. I just hadn't realized how impactful it was. And I know my daughter, she's used breathwork, and I remember her telling me, "Oh, Dad, you've got to try this. This is kind of special." So I'm really delighted that you volunteered your time to speak to
Well,
us.
mhm. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, Isa. And I think one of the things that we wanted to start with was just really go back to that little brief section, which was Sir Lancelot of the Round Table, talking about how the knights of that era trained, particularly with regards to the King Arthur. And one thing that I've learned through the this particular book, The Hypnotist Journey to Avalon, was that how spiritual that round table and the King Arthur and Merlin. Merlin's still an energy that's out there today, right? So I found it amazing. So is that okay? We start with that, Isa? We'll
Let's go
start.
for it. Yeah.
Let's do that to set the scene. Bear with me a second.
Tell me more about yourself. What do you do during your day? Much of the day is consumed by preparation for battle, training, drills, and relentless practice. We work tirelessly to sharpen our skills, training new knights, and perfecting the art of combat. But the most critical lesson isn't about swordsmanship or strategy. It's about mastering ourselves. They drilled into us the importance of controlling our emotions, explaining that true strength lies in the ability to remain calm under pressure. A warrior who can keep his head clear and his heart steady is unstoppable, even in the chaos of battle. It's not just about fighting, it's about becoming something more, something unshakable, no matter what stands before you. It all begins and ends with breath control. Your breath is the bridge between your body and your emotions. And in the chaos of battle, it's your greatest tool. When the adrenaline surges, your breath instinctively quickens, becomes shallow and erratic. If you let that happen, your emotions spiral, and you're dragged into a reactive state, fear, anger, or panic taking over. But if you can master your breath, you can master yourself. Slowing your breathing, keeping it deep and steady, anchors your mind. It allows you to remain calm, even as chaos rages around you. Each inhale and exhale reminds your body that it's in control. With that control comes clarity. Your actions are no longer driven by instinct, but by intention. More than that, focused breath work strengthens the protective energy around you. As you breathe steadily, you feel yourself surrounded by an invisible shield, a field of calm and safety that nothing can penetrate. This isn't just about defense. It's about commanding your space, shaping the battle on your terms. Mastering this takes practice, but when you can maintain that state, calm breath, steady emotions, and unshakable sense of protection, it's like standing in the eye of the storm. Everything may rage around you, but you remain untouched. That's the true strength of a warrior. What type of breathing would you do? Our technique was precise. We'd roll the tip of our tongue up to the roof of our mouths, creating a connection within ourselves and taking the deepest breath we could. As we inhaled, we focused on our abdomen, imagining a ball of light forming there. This ball wasn't just a visualization, it was our shield, our field of protection. As we breathed in, the ball contracted, growing denser, pulling energy inward, strengthening. When we exhaled, we would press the breath out of our abdomen, visualizing the ball expanding outward, wrapping around us like an impenetrable shield. This contraction and expansion, in sync with each breath, created a rhythm, a dynamic living barrier of light and energy. The key was control. As long as we could maintain steady, deliberate breathing, we could maintain this field. A deep inhale would draw the protection inward, fortifying it, and a slow, measured exhale would expand it outward, surrounding us with calm, focused energy. The practice wasn't just physical, it demanded emotional balance. Each breath carried intention. Each inhale and exhale was a reminder that we controlled our state, no matter what chaos surrounded us. This rhythm of contraction and expansion was our greatest anchor, our armor, and our greatest defense.
Isa, that was the inspiration to reach out. Very grateful that you volunteered to step forward for this. How do you like listening to this? Obviously, what would have been a medieval version of breathwork, but the importance of it. How does that sound relative to your experience with breathwork?
Yeah, the first thing that came when I listen is that so we live in a different time, and most of us we are aspirant warriors, I would call us, rather than really knights. Maybe we were in a other lifetime, and we have to remember actually. And so right now on the planet, I do feel that there is a lot of suffering and a lot of trauma in people's system. So we also use the breath to center ourselves, but eventually, before we get there, we have to clear a lot of traumas, right? So this is how we are using breathwork, integrative breathwork nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's integrative breathwork. Then there is still also, other technique of breathwork like pranayama and those kind of techniques that allow us to center ourselves and to come back to the now and to connect our mind and our body. That's really, I mean, he speaks of mind and emotion. I like that. It's also mind and body. When we come back to our body, with the breath, with the vehicle of the breath, by really feeling it move in the abdomen, ideally in the abdomen, we come back to the temple of our physical form. And also we come back to earth, because the body is earth, is of the earth element. So this grounding allows us to remember, okay, I am here grounded, I am safe in this moment. So that's what that's what would come up. But as I was saying, nowadays we have a lot of trauma to clear, and so the way we use integrative breath work is a modality that allows us to to clear our traumas, actually, to clear them by accessing them. So the breath, so this is circular diaphragmatic breathing. So we breathe without pause between inhale, exhale, and the next inhale, and it creates a change in the pH of the body. And so it makes the blood more alkaline. And trauma tends to acidify actually the body. So with breath work, we start to thaw those places who have been frozen for a long time, and we allow flow to come back. What's really magical about breath work is that we don't necessarily have to go back through the stories and, process in the
Mm.
mind. The breath is the medicine. You
Yes.
just breathe, and so you start to breathe in a circular manner. The body gets really activated, and the mind, as the body gets activated, the mind starts to relax a little bit, and all the attention now comes onto the breath and the body, and whatever was hidden for a long time because we in our era, I would say we live more in our head than we live in our body. So we cut ourselves off from our embodied experience where the trauma resides.
Mm.
So once we activate the body through the breath, everything that is under the surface of our ordinary mind now just comes up and becomes available. And the instruction, I would say, is to breathe through it and to trust that the breath will clear up whatever needs to be cleared. I like to add that for me, healing is really about compassion, befriending, rather than pushing away. And pushing away, this is what we have done for a long time in our lives. And that's because we pushed it away that it continues to exist in our body. So breathing into those places that were hidden or that are difficult or unacceptable, but breathing with this intention for curiosity and for compassion and healing and befriending, really awakening the heart actually in the process.
Mm.
That's what clears up those past traumas, I would say. But there is, I mean, I think it's important to speak of trauma because we are living at a time when suffering is still very prevalent on the planet. And yet now we are also starting to see that there is another way of being
Yes.
where we can exist in the heart from a place of love and a place of expansion. And the breath work allows us to reach that place. So eventually, and this is not in every session, a person will have to address some of those wounding, but maybe not. And
Yeah.
maybe after a lot of breath work, everything is cleared, and then you breathe and you just reach that higher potential of humankind, I would say, which
Yeah.
is to feel so much joy and so much love and so much energy and life force activated and lots of inspiration. And then beyond that, we can also reach a place where we see beyond the veil. So, there are always spirits present around us. They are there. We just don't see them. And if we don't even believe in them, I mean, we can completely cut off. And
Yes.
with this type of breath work, you just, because we bypass, I would say, what we call, how is it called now? That network of the ego self. I forgot the
Mm.
scientific name now, but in any way, we bypass that cage of the ego, and then we enter what is possible about being human. And what is possible is to feel. And for some people is to feel, for other people is to hear or to see, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. And we start to enter in connection with the presence around us. And it can be people who we have loved and they passed, or it could be spirit guides, or, I mean, anything,
Yeah.
anything. And so that becomes such a way, I think, to realize the potential of us human, and it expands our consciousness. In one word, you would say breath work expands consciousness. That's
Yeah.
what it does. Yeah.
Yeah. And this really reminds me as well of when I did the Awakening the Sacred Heart workshop that Drunvalo Melchizedek ran a lot of this. And actually, one of the connections actually with the Knights of the Round Table thing, they talk about, and as you're talking about this as well, like the living from the heart rather than from the mind. Okay, this is the switch. But one of the things that Lancelot talked about was that the way they're taught to link the end of their tongue up to the roof of their mouth in a
Mhm.
specific position, because we were taught in that workshop that the tongue is actually connected around the heart because there is a sac that goes all the way around the heart. So effectively, the tongue represents the heart energy connecting to the mind. So it helps with that mind heart connection. And there was a lot of breath work involved with this and pranic breathing and the likes, which I had never really been aware of pranic breathing before. And but how this powers you up from a consciousness perspective to break out of like the programmed and conditioned human that we've been taught to believe we are, which is very limited, to be exactly how you describe it. Like we've got to go through clearing the trauma, right? That's part of what we've got to do right now. Because we, again, like as a Brit, we're always taught to repress things, right? Don't show your emotions, bottle it all up. That's got to be good for you. So the time is now where we have to allow these things to come to the surface. And one of the things I remember again about doing the breath work at the Greg Braden event, care of yourself and your friends, um, was the amount of clearing that went on. The amount of emotion that came out from people, the release. It was just, it was amazing. The energy of the place. It just, I wouldn't have believed it possible. Like you'd imagine this is some strong medication going on here. Well, no, actually, all we're doing is breathing in a very specific and disciplined way. But it's kind of like such a natural high and connection that it was just, I just couldn't imagine it being that way. So I think
Mhm.
it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, yeah, yeah. And as I hear you talk, I want to reframe a little bit what I said. I spoke of trauma, and that's a very hip word, I would say, nowadays. But like you said, there are a lot of emotions that we have not felt.
Hmm.
And emotion is energy in motion. So we stopped the motion of that energy. And as we stop it, it gets stuck somewhere in the body. Maybe it's not a trauma per se. Maybe it's just, you didn't, when you were little, you just didn't get the dessert you wanted to have or whatever, the cookie,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so all those tears that were not shed in the past, they stay in the body, so they have to flow again. They have to flow again, and so that's what we do with the breath work, and it's
yeah,
like by layer, yeah.
yeah. And it's again going back to one of the phrases that was used by in the Lancelot piece is that standing in the eye of the storm. Once you get this connection, the chaos can be going on all around you because this is what we're working our way through now. Okay, so like there's planetary chaos because there's a lot of rebalancing needs to take place there on a planetary basis. And at the same time, we have this war of consciousness that's going on right now, with the lower forces trying to stop people from rising in consciousness. At the same time, those on the higher timeline actually have as long as we're focused on that higher timeline, this is the way I understand it. I believe that higher timeline is protected from those darker entities whose role it is in this lifetime to try and put a lid on humanity as much as they can. So this is one of the things I see with breath work and exactly what you're describing, Isa, is that, it is that bridge to this high dimension and the bridge to who we really are, Not the
Yeah,
version that we've been told we are, but the version
yeah.
we really are. How many years have you been doing the breath work?
15 years.
Okay, okay.
15 years, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and we often say that breath work, integrative breath work is really a modality to remember who we truly are and who we truly are, as a as as an individual self. What is my personal light? How do I personally emit my light, through this body and this mind? So that's the power of the breath. Yeah,
mm,
is to return to that, to really return to that. And after each session, I mean, I do that quite a lot, and I can see at the end of a session, like, people come back out. They come back out, and you can see the spark of
mm,
light, spark of the soul. And then eventually, the conditioning comes back until until it does not, until it does not. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
as you say, the connection to spirit who is all around us. You're kind of like that you're thinning the veil at the same time, right? Because
Yeah.
our vibration is going to rise, even if theirs stays the same, we're getting closer. Our ability to feel into that or to see that is got to be getting closer and closer, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is growing for sure. And it's like, the way I experience it is, it's as we through the breath work, of course, the thinking mind comes to rest a little bit. I mean, that's the goal. If it
Yeah,
does not, this is really where we want to go. Um, and so the heart gets activated eventually.
yeah,
And once the heart is activated, it's like the heart is a portal. I like to call it the portal to the all there is. And the all there is sacred geometry all around us. And so we enter into that field. And it's really difficult to put words onto that. I mean, for me, I value the experience more than I value the capacity to speak of it. I mean, it's good to point to people where, how and what it is, but the experience is really where we need to go right now. It's into that experience. And what you were saying also was, sparked in me the dialogue between fear and love.
mm,
Um, Fear is still is I mean, we can say that fear is what keeps us contracted, what keeps us into that lower timeline or lower consciousness. And the work right now is to recognize a fear when it comes, because we don't live in, I mean, ideally we don't live in fear most of the time, but I remember a time in my life when I was living in fear most of the time. So I think it's still a possibility. But the work we are called to do right now is to choose between love and fear. And what does it mean? People have to know what love is. And
yeah,
through breath work, we can know that, because we can reach that state where we are so expanded and so safe. Safety is very important in a breath work circle, I would say, because people have to realize, yeah, their safeties, they have to be safe so that they can expand into that higher state of consciousness.
yeah, yeah. And I also, you're talking about like getting more out of the mind and into the heart. And I know that speaking on behalf of left brainers out there around the world, as indeed I am or was, I'm kind of like to think I'm more balanced these days. But at the same time, I know the left brain world pretty well, and I know it's a longer journey to get from left brain kind of living into the heart because you're going left to right. The right is the connection more into the heart.
I don't know if we can go to the heart through the thinking mind, actually. I Because it's still a thought, it's not an experience, and the heart is about experiencing. I mean, sometimes I joke about romantic love. Romantic love, is it really love? Right? Maybe a moment here and there, a moment of delight, but most of the time, excuse me, most of the time it's contractual.
Yes.
More- When I speak of love, I speak of unconditional love.
Mm.
Would
Yeah,
be
no,
my
and I get it because it's not something that again, going back over the conditioning and programming of 60 odd years that I've had, it's not a natural where we're going now, and this is the way I look at it. So we've had 13,000 years cycle of living from the duality of the mind. We've now started this next 13,000 year cycle, which is kind of more moving from the masculine egoic energy into the feminine, collaborative, heart based, unity consciousness, Christ consciousness. There's so many ways of defining it, but it all comes back to the same thing, which is we are all one. And the recognition that when you do something against another, you are doing it to yourself by definition. So all of a sudden we start to work together, and this is kind of where we're going. But of course, we have got this crossover period where one era is finished and the next one is beginning, and
Yeah.
and more and more. And this is one of the things that I'm really loving about this era is that I see so many healers now stepping into their power because
Mhm.
now is the time. And you, Isa, right? What
Yeah.
you're doing for the communities that you work with,
Mhm.
it makes a difference. It really does.
It does make a difference. Yeah, it's important that we do the work right now. It feels, yeah, it touches my heart just to feel into that, to feel.
Mm,
I mean, just in my little circle here in my little town, just even my daughter, when she suffers, I suffer with her.
yes.
A friend of mine suffers, I suffer with them, and yeah, my mission right now is or my greatest desire, I would say, is to live in harmony and with
Mm,
everybody, with everybody. I just went to the hot springs this morning and talked with a lady there, and she's contracted, and she speaks of politics, and she says, she expressed her annoyance, I guess, with the politics, and I look at her and I just feel like, you could choose not to put your attention there, and you could
yeah.
choose something else.
Yeah, no, it's a super valid point. And this is one of the tests, I believe, for humanity right now, is that
Mhm.
the external noise is getting louder and louder. And there's a reason for that. And Pam Gregory, the astrologer, puts it very well. She said it's like when you're watching a play or you're at a play and all of a sudden the scenery starts to collapse. So the actors are getting louder and louder because they're trying to not have you noticed the fact that the scenery is all collapsing. The volume goes up and everybody's trying to, but we can see the scenery is collapsing. We can see that all this illusion is starting to fall away. But so many people, and this is something actually working on something right now for this weekend that covers this very point, which is all about the fact that, people are drawn into these stories unnecessarily. You're carrying the burdens you don't need to carry. They are not
Sure.
yours to carry. But we're having this pushed in our face every day. What's the latest that's gone on? Okay. Oh no, here's another problem. And the problem is, of course, is that if we tune into the mainstream media, we have the opportunity to take every burden that goes on in the world and put it on our shoulders because they don't give us a balanced view of the world, right? They're going to say, they don't get to the second half, say, right, now we're going to talk about all the fantastic things that are going on in the world.
Right, yeah, yeah, it's not happening. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's one of these things, you have to be very careful what you choose to ingest, in so many ways, right? Whether we're talking about, sustenance, or whether we're talking about breath work, or whether we're talking about, just the short breath of life, and the media, and the politicians, and the sideshows that are going on trying to distract us from who we are. And that is
Yeah.
where the true power is. It all lies within. We keep hearing this. And, the work that you're doing, as I see it, is that bridge into who we are.
Yeah.
The same way that when Jolene does her meditations, that's the bridge into who we are. And all this added together as a practice can be so powerful.
It is important, yeah. I do believe right now that practice is the way. I mean, for me, practice is the way. I would not be who I am today if I didn't practice all my life.
Mm,
Meditation, breath work, feeding your demons is another practice that is very, very dear to my heart, and the dyad process. Because if I live in this 3D and just pay attention to what other people are saying and what the medias are saying, and or I just go on to social media. Social media
yeah.
is intense. I mean, there is so much darkness out there, and the darkness is part of the old world. And I am committed to the new earth. This is where I choose to exist. It's in the
Yes.
new, not in the old world.
And the problem is for most people is they don't yet realize they have a choice. They
Right.
haven't reached that trigger point yet.
Mhm.
And I'd like to think that for Elevated Planet, we're just trying to we are providing a bridge to those who are ready to explore and find out if it's for them, but always honoring the fact that their individuated journey is their individuated journey. But if we can provide the tools and the inspiration for them to want to explore and quite possibly cross over that bridge, because, you know, if you ask the fundamental question, do you want to live in fear-based emotions, of which there's a lot, right? And I see it going on, and this is one of the things you really spot when you know what the mainstream are talking about is when everybody's talking about immigration. It's their fault that our national health service is falling over. It shouldn't be this, it shouldn't be that. And you know that these people are not directly exposed to this problem, yet they're talking about it as if it really is their problem. And they have all the verbiage and they're all saying the same thing. So all they're doing is they're regurgitating the programming that they've been given externally, and they bought into it. And I get to understand it, and I try and explain this in a very compassionate kind of way because again, everybody is entitled to their journey. But if you have that choice and say, okay, right, you can choose to live in fear. You can choose to get angry about all these things that are wrong with the world right now, or how would it feel instead to live in joy, to live in happiness, and to live in compassion? And even when the bad stuff's going on, you're able to find a position of neutrality, divine neutrality, where you can offer compassion, kindness, and you can add those energies, but you're not going to quantumly entangle with the darkness, right? Where this is what everybody's doing. As soon as they're entangled with those problems, with the politics, with the wars, with whichever section it is, then once you're quantumly entangling it, this is you giving your energy to them. Isa, one of the things that I know that you do, like just going beyond the breath work and the dietary side of things, can you just give us a little bit of background on that?
You mean the dyad?
Yeah, sorry. No, the nutritional side. Is it nutrition you do, or was that, did I miss? Oh, it was the dyad.
Yeah, dyad and feeding your demons. That's
That's it.
have you heard about that
That's not something I'm familiar with.
so this is it's a Buddhist practice that was created by Lama Tsoltrim Alyon. She was the first American female Lama. She adapted a very traditional Buddhist practice that's called the Chud, into the feeding your demons practice, which is more accessible for Western people. So it's based on the idea that we befriend our demons rather than, trying to kill them, actually.
Yeah.
And we all have demons inside of us. So the process consists in connecting with that demon, which is, a part of us that was hidden at some point. And then we have a little dialogue with that part, asking what it wants and what it needs. And through this inquiry, we get to know what is the unmet need of that part of ourselves. And the unmet need is creates what create a loop in our life, a sense of stuckness, actually. So once we know what the need is, we transform our body into an actor that has the quality of that need, and we offer it to the
Mm.
demon. So we feed the demon. And as we do that, that part of us is now satisfied for the very first time, probably in our lives, because it was a shadow before, and it transforms into an ally. So it becomes a force that is at service to us rather than against us. And that's a beautiful practice.
Wow. I wasn't familiar with that. It makes, to me, that just makes total sense because I think about, with healing and things of that nature, for instance, cancer, say cancer as an example of something that many, people have suffered from this particular dread disease. And the idea is that you fight your cancer, right? That's the way that the westernized world would put it, fight and cancer. Yet the energy of fight does not help you overcome cancer. The fact is that you can, in the same way that you're talking about with the demons, the fact is that it's kind of creating a link with the cancer and understanding the cancer is not bad. The
Mhm.
cancer is the cancer, right?
Mhm.
But it's not that it's evil, it's there because probably there is an imbalance somewhere, right, that needs to be rectified. And I think this is ultimately where medical science will go in the future because it'll be way more holistic and it won't be a case of the westernized approach at the moment of chemotherapy and the likes. But nevertheless, I think that this idea of creating a bond with the demon, it kind of like works in that same way as to acknowledge the fact that this is a living, sort of like consciousness that we can connect to. And as you say, find out where is the shortfall? Where is the issue? What needs to be addressed? Um, yeah. And
Yeah.
so I mean, typically when people go into that, do they usually find at the outset there are a bunch of things there that they would want to address? Is there a typical kind of?
Well, you can enter into that process with a problem that, like you have a problem in your life, and so then you just find where it's located in the body. So it's very
Mm,
somatic. And then once you locate it in the body, you dive into giving it a shape and a form and a color, and then you project that shape in front of your mind's eye and let it become personified as a being or the demon. It's really a being. I prefer to call it a being. And that's a projection of your subconscious mind. You
mm.
know, that blockage you have somewhere in your body or in your life now takes a form that you can work with and really hear, so much information about that stuckness or that problem you have. And what I'd like to say also about that technique is that it really takes us into it takes us into unity consciousness, I would say, which to me the only way we get there is through love and compassion. That's it.
Yes. Yes.
Duality is all about separation, and so there is something that white and black or good and bad or light and evil, acceptable, non-acceptable, and that's the division of the old world. And now this time, this amazing time we live in,
No.
is about creating that. It's taking everything in. It's this embrace, true compassion, And when once you start to re-include those parts of yourself that were rejected, well, now you don't project them outside anymore. Now you start to have not just compassion for yourself, but also for those people. At some point, you didn't like them because they were a representation of your own shadow. So all those practices, they are a way to create peace on our planet.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. I mean, especially the feeding your demons, because it's really a psychological process.
Mm.
Then there is the dyad contemplation. That's another one of my favorite. And what I like about that one is that you are in a paired meditation with another person, and then you receive an instruction, like, for example, open to who you are. Then the listener is just really holding space with pure compassion and direct listening, I would say. And this is a time to experience the field. For
Mm.
me, it's how I experience it. I start to experience the unified field,
Mm.
because it is in the relational field, right? When you are in front of another, now there is this relational field that becomes very alive and very present. And by attuning to it and speaking of it, you come to realize what it is. So the dyad contemplation is a very, very, very powerful process as well. So all those practices, they have their own gifts, I would say. Breath work allows us to realize our higher potential and to remember who we truly are as an individual self. And then the dyad process allows us to realize who we are as a collective, if it's where we choose to go in our inquiry. And then the feeding your demons, like other practices, psychological processes, they allow us to clear up some of our the
Mm.
division that we have inside, and by reflection, the division in which we live in this world right now. I mean, all the politics, and it's all about that, right? It's all about
Yes.
dividing people, um, and we are over it. We are over
Yes.
it. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. No,
It's
and
time.
this, everything you say just resonates so much because, this is the one of the biggest challenges, isn't it? That, the fact is the duality thing. It's very easy to fall back into this because you say, okay, you know, because we're like, I'm a spiritual person, therefore I recognize this as good and this as bad, and therefore straight away you're kind of drawing that duality back into it. And it's kind of like understanding that this time is different. And, the whole unity of the heart consciousness thing, which is something that we are going back to, is so powerful. And all these different ways of these, the dyad process and things like that. Again, it just resonates because everything starts to fall into place. So, you hear about it for the first time. Oh yeah, that actually falls beautifully in line with that. You don't get one of the joys of this. I never see contradictions. It's not, yeah, either this is right or this is right. It's all right together. And the fact is that we will be drawn to certain facets of certain things because that will resonate for us a little bit more.
Right.
So, but it's nice to have a smorgasbord of different methodologies and abilities for us to be able to explore because something will just say, yeah, that I've got to explore that. And to your point as well about this being experiential for for the breath work, it has to be, you've got to go there. You've got to see it for yourself, experience it for yourself. Because that, to me, when I was in the hall in Sedona doing that hour and whatever it was of work we were doing there, it was life changing. It was amazing. It was an experience I didn't know was possible just
Mhm.
by doing what we did. The other thing, of course, which you mentioned, you very kindly said, Isa, that you are going to be doing a session on an online session, which you don't not typically do, correct?
But I feel like it's time to bring it on, and to share this practice with more people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will offer one on the first one. That's not just the only one, but that will be the first one on April 22nd. And then I plan to do it once a month. And it will be hosted on the Circle of the New Earth, which is a little online community platform where we practice together. We practice together the daya, the breath work, the feeding your demons. And down the road, there will be more practitioners coming and sharing their practice. And then it's hosted on circle.so, so it's a community platform where people can also share their experience.
I love that because again, this is, yeah, it's great to talk about this because it does help people to understand the power of this, but the real power is the direct experience. So I think it's great that, we can reach out across the Elevated Planet community and say anybody who wants to go online and join Isa on the Circle of the New Earth platform to
Mhm.
experience this and make it into a practice, because this is the other thing as well, of course. It's and this is one thing I would have to feel guilty of if I felt guilt too much these days, is the fact of making it a practice, because you get so busy going on to the next bright shiny object that you forget about all these other shiny objects that you should also be building into your life, right?
That's right. And I do believe so much in community. You know, we are so much more powerful together. Practicing, I mean, I have practiced by myself all my life, but I also practice with others, and I can reach a different level when I practice with another person.
Mm,
It's, the other just hold space of that maybe unity consciousness, but
yeah,
just having somebody who holds space. You have to stay there, you have to stay with your practice. If you are all by yourself, then, oh, maybe I'm gonna do it fast and
yeah,
I'll just get on my computer right after. But if you have somebody who is holding space, then you are more engaged with it, and that's why I created the Circle of the New Earth community, is to offer that to people, and also, I mean, the Aquarius age is about that. It's about community, collaboration, cooperation, communication. It's about being together. The fifth dimension is about realizing that we are all one, that we are not separate beings. So community is a big part of our new era, I
mm,
believe. And at this point, because we still have a little bit of one foot in the old world and one foot in the new, we need practice. That's my perspective. That's my belief. We need practice to set our being into the new frequency, into the frequency of the heart.
mm,
And for that, we need a community to hold the space and to believe together in this new way of being, in this new era, this in this dream. It's almost like a dream, like the new earth is not a place, it's a frequency. And it's a little bit of a dream because, I mean, I'm 55 now. I have lived 55 on this earth and 55 years. And, I have lived in the darkness.
mm,
I have. There is no pretension here, and I still feel it sometimes when it comes. And my community is such a place of support, to be able to connect with somebody and talk it out, or to practice with somebody it's a gift. It's
Sure.
really a gift that I would like everyone to have, everyone to know that possibility and to know what it is to live in the heart. It's so beautiful, and it's so, I say now, I say it's so easy. It's actually very easy to be in unity consciousness, because it's just about being right here and emitting that love. A little story here. When I had a very difficult childhood, and when I became a mother, I became a mother quite late in my life, but all those unsatisfied needs, they were still very present in me. And when I became a mother, I realized, oh, I can give love and I become love. I
Mhm.
don't need to receive it. I just need to give it, and I am it when I give it. And that's what carries me in this life, is
Yeah.
just to give love, to be that love.
It's beautifully put, and I think that is such an important point because again, if you go back to the westernized version of thinking that we've been conditioned and programmed, when you give something, you expect to receive something in return, right?
Mhm.
But actually giving without any desire for somebody else to do something because you've done that,
Mhm.
that is truly something that lights you up. I mean, that is just the selflessness of it. It's
Mhm.
giving, and you put that so well, you become love, right? That that's
Mhm.
just I love that. I think that's just a beautiful way of actually putting it. And I've got to say, we've never, other than having exchanging voice messages and stuff, your energy is you got such a beautiful angelic energy. I love
Mhm.
that.
Thank
And
you.
so I think that you leading these kind of events will be really powerful. And the other thing, again, talking about the value of community, again, it comes back to that notion of the squared energy. If you get 10 people doing it, it's not 10, it's not the energy of 10, it's the energy of 10 times 10, right? It's 100, right? So when you start to pull together that community and the numbers add up, all of a sudden you squaring a big number. And that is
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
adding such a beautiful frequency into the collective consciousness. It's kind of taking us yet further steps across that bridge into the world of unspeakable beauty, as we would put it, or the new Avalon or whatever, right? The new Earth. This
Yeah.
is where we're heading. I
Yeah.
mean, what a joy it is to be on the planet right now. I know there's plenty of darkness, there's plenty of stuff that you can get absorbed by, but the fact is that to be here right now, I just regard it as one of the ultimate honors. And doing what we can do to self-actualize and to help others, begin their journey as well is a real joy.
It's a joy, a blessing. Also, it feels like I feel very grateful
Mm,
also for the opportunity, the honor actually to work with people and to share the to share the light, to share love, to see people transforming also and coming back to who they truly are. Yeah, it is a joy, it's a blessing and an honor. Yeah.
fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I'm excited now for April the 22nd. And that's one of my fierce determinations this time around is to make this into a practice
Yeah.
and, you know, encourage anybody who feels the same way to do likewise as well. And let's share the journey. And
It's
and
a journey. Yes.
and
Yes.
and and now we've got the WhatsApp community. It's a great place for just throwing comments in there about what the experience was like for you. And again, it's a learning journey for all of us, right? That never stops.
Yeah. And the transformation journey also.
Yes.
Right now, it feels that it's very transformational time where, the frequencies of the earth are more available for us to reach those higher states of consciousness much, much more than 10 years ago. So it's a great time. Yeah, transformation.
It is, isn't it? And you're absolutely right, as I see it as well as the last decade. If we were talking about this a decade ago, the
Mhm.
potential audience would be very, very small, right? And you would struggle to find them. Whereas now, because the exponential increase in people understanding actually we're not these tiny little people that we've been told. We're
Yeah.
actually these massive, we're part of the quantum field. We are the field. We are, we have all this Christ consciousness within our unity consciousness. This Age of Aquarius is so exciting. I love the idea of the collaborative energy, the community, the rise of the feminine to take a more, well, I mean, I say it's always a balance between masculine and feminine to get it right, but to have that collaborative feminine energy leading the way is so important after the egoic masculine energy that is
Yeah.
being can be witnessed pretty much anywhere in the world you care to look right now.
Yeah. 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 And what's sad about it is how much chaos it has created,
Mm,
yeah, and destruction of the planet. So we're done with that. Let's not talk too much. Let's
that's
not
it.
much
No,
energy and let's,
that's
yeah,
it. Chaos
see.
can be the prerequisite for change, and change is the thing to focus on because change is a constant and change is not to be, you don't need to be afraid of change because change is taking us to a beautiful place. So embrace it. And I know we've been taught to be fearful, but we don't have to be. That's a choice people make.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Isa. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your time. I really appreciate also April the 22nd. We'll put the details out there as this video goes out. So, yeah, may this be the beginning of the breathwork era for Elevated Planet community, intermingling with the circle of the new Earth.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much also to the Elevated Planet community for tuning in as well. Isa is also part of our WhatsApp community, so there's another way to reach her as well. Anyway, thank you, Isa. Much appreciated. You take care. I'll be back in touch again very soon.